In this video, I'm going to show you how to apply patterns in Adobe Illustrator CS6 using the Swatches and Appearance panel. So the patterns are like the dots that you see in my design here. So I'm going to walk you through how to create these. So here's my design with no pattern in it. I'm going to select the part of the design or the paths in my design that I want to apply the patterns to, and I'm going to open up my patterns by going to Window Swatches. The patterns are actually located within the Swatches panel, but usually they don't automatically load, so you'll probably have to do some work to load them first. You can either do that by clicking on the flyout menu in the upper right corner, and going down to Open Swatch Library and going down to Patterns and choosing any of your patterns from these libraries here, or you can click the lower right button in the Swatches panel, go down to Patterns, and choose your pattern library from there. I'm going to be working with the Basic Graphic Textures library right here. And so this is my library on top, and these are my, this is actually my Swatches panel on the top. So once you apply or use a pattern, it's going to jump up into that Swatches panel. So what I'm going to do next is, while my object's still selected, I'm going to go to Window, Appearance, and in the Appearance panel is actually where I'm going to do all the hard work. I'm going to go down to my fill. As you see, I have one fill right now. I have one stroke, one fill. I also have an effect which I've turned off. If you have any other effects, you'll see those in the Appearance panel. I'm going to click on the fill so the fill is selected, and I'm going to click on the flyout menu and choose Add New Fill, or you can click on this little icon right beside the little trash can and click Duplicate Selected Item. So now I have two fills, which doesn't really make sense because I have two fills on top of each other, but you'll see why it does make sense in just a second. So now I'm going to select out of that library and a pattern, and you've got tons of patterns to choose from, and I'm just basically trying to emulate what's in my original photograph. I have some dots in the design, kind of keep it realistic, but maybe make it a little more interesting than my photograph was. So you can scroll through those and find the pattern rather, that works best for you. So as a side note, some of these patterns are see-through and some of them are not. So if you choose one that is not see-through, you'll know it right away. Some of them have holes in them and work that way, and some of them do not. So you may find that some work better than others. If you go back to the textures, a lot of these you can see through, and obviously they're just little dots. Some of them are lines. Now if you want two patterns in your design, for example, if I like the dots and I want another pattern, I can click on New Fill and I can choose a new pattern. So I can have lines and I can have the dots like so. So if I like that, maybe you do, you can adjust this even further. If you go into the fill icon right here at the bottom, if you click on the little triangle beside where it says fill, you can choose opacity, and you can choose the opacity right here to lower it down so it's not as abrupt. And you can also choose the blending mode right here, like you see in Photoshop, in many panels in Photoshop, in the layers panel, in the brushes panel, lots of places in Photoshop. So if you choose, for example, lighten or overlay, it's going to change the look that particular pattern has on a design. So you can try the different pattern blending options right there, as well as in conjunction with your opacity to adjust your pattern from there. Now I still see those lines in there. You can adjust those further by scaling them. If you go to your scale tool, hit S on your keyboard or jump over to the scale tool, and I'm actually going to double click right on the scale tool on the tool panel, just double click it right there, and you can change your pattern within here. I'm going to check preview so I can preview this, and I'm going to uncheck scale, stroke, and effect, and uncheck transform objects. Otherwise it's going to scale everything, which I don't really want, and I just want to transform the pattern. Now this is at 700%. If you hold shift down and hit the up arrows, you'll see what it does when it changes this scale pattern up or down. And it jumps by tens if you hold down the shift key and hold the arrow key down. So you can scale your pattern to where you want it to be. Now originally I had those lines in it because it was just a little bit scaled a little bit too small, but if I bump it up, it gives it a more plastic look, I guess. So maybe that's something you want. I didn't apply any effects to that, I just applied that pattern to it. Now if you go back to scale that again, it's going to default to the last item that you had. Now scaling 300% on top of the 300% I already had. So you might have to back that back down a little bit to get what you're looking for. So you might have to play around with that just a little bit to change that around. So that is, in a quick nutshell, using the patterns within the Swatches panel to create patterns on top of your object within the appearance panel. So it's all one package, all grouped together. One last note, if you decide you want to turn a pattern off, you can click on the eyeballs, just like I did with the drop shadow, and you can turn those patterns off further. And if you want to adjust them further, you can adjust them further right here within the appearance panel, which is located in Adobe Illustrator CS6.